So I have nothing better to do, so why not? Let's just go through some of the nut keepers, extra points or questions, get this over with, get this done with. Why not? You know, I unfortunately have this series burned into my brain from cover to cover, all 34 volumes, so let's just go through it. Why does Zeke's death stop being the rumbling not make sense? Wasn't it made absolutely clear that Eren needed Zeke to do the rumbling because Zeke had the royal blood? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so he needed Zeke only to get into contact with the founder. Once he was in contact with the founder, and once he freed her, the rumbling was running off of Ymir's will. Period. Or you could say the rumbling was running off of Ymir and Eren's will. Period. That's it. Zeke was the catalyst. Zeke was the key, if you will. If you think about it, like when you unlock a door with a key, after the door's unlocked, do you still need that key to get into that room? No, right? Once it's unlocked, you could just twist the knob and walk right in. You don't need to keep the key in the door to get in the door, right? Zeke was the key. Zeke was the proxy that Eren used to get into contact with the founder Ymir. That's it. That's why Zeke being killed doesn't make sense for the rumbling to stop. And hey, it doesn't completely stop. So I don't know why it pauses. That's really weird in my opinion. But I don't think that necessarily makes it bad. Like, that's not one of the points. That's not one of the hills that I would die on to say, oh, the ending's bad because the rumbling paused for 2 seconds because Zeke was killed. Like, that's weird to me. It's strange, but it's not the worst thing ever. So this one's a weird point. Why do people think Eren could have prevented Sasha's death? I thought it was only said that the attack titan could see the future, not change it. Was it stated that the future could be changed? Now this, I will say, if Eren sees that, like, in this future memory, that Sasha is going to be killed via a wound in her chest on a blimp, wouldn't that mean, like, wouldn't you, if that's your best friend that you care so dearly about, that you want to have a long, happy life, wouldn't you put some precautions on the boat or, like, the blimp? Wouldn't you, like, go out of your way to make sure that the blimp is secure? Wouldn't you tell someone, hey, like, I saw a vision, Sasha's gonna die. You guys are my dear, dear friends that I want to live long, happy lives. Make sure this blimp is secure. Wouldn't you do that? No. So the biggest part of why people complain about Sasha's death, or why they bring up Sasha's death, is the fact that the quote entire motivation for Eren to do the rumbling by 139 is that he wanted his friends and his friends only to live long, happy lives. He did not care about Paradis. So it makes no sense that he would allow Sasha to die. He can only see the future, not change it. I'm sorry. That's not the character we watched this whole series. If there was something he didn't agree with, like, didn't he even have a scene where he was like, I can't accept that, and he fucking went ballistic or some shit and changed his fate, like when him and Mikasa were about to die in chapter 50. That was before he kissed Historia's hand and saw memories of the future and blah, 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 right? So from his perspective, that was the end of he and Mikasa's lives. But he did not accept it. And so he fought against it, right? And so that is the character of Eren Yeager that we've watched develop for 4 seasons. So why would this character just sit and accept his friend that he wished to have a long, happy life die? Why would he allow the future to pan out like that when in this current moment he has free will? It makes no sense. Why wouldn't he at least try to protect Sasha? It makes absolutely no sense. That's why it's bad. Okay? Okay, pause to read this one. This one basically says, like, how can people say that the Yeagerists were in the right for destroying the Paradis military and killing people like exactly Nile Pixis, blah, blah, blah. What's the benefit of doing that? Doesn't that destroy Paradis' chance of survival? No, it does not. Because if you remember correctly, and this is why I feel like ending defenders don't remember half or most of the story, and they just remember the fight scenes or something like that. They completely negate the political state of things. In Paradis, the higher ups in the military were keeping the information from the people. Hanji, especially. All of these people were keeping the information from the people. Like the fact that there was a world alliance coming to Paradis to wipe them all off of the map. Eren and the Yeagerists took things into their own hands to empower the people of Paradis. Hey, there's an imminent threat coming your way. And so I have to do this rumbling to keep you all safe. Period. By any means necessary. That's just how would you feel if there was a flood or something coming and there was a boat that could take you and your family away from the flood? And your president was like, hey, you cannot get on the boat. You cannot get on the boat. As long as I'm alive, you cannot get on this boat. And you're like, hey, isn't there a flood coming and it's going to kill everyone? Let me and my family on the boat. And the president's like, no, you cannot get on the boat. Are you just going to listen to the president, not get on the boat and die with your family? Or are you going to get on that boat, even if it costs that president his life? Let's say the president isn't even a bad guy, right? It's are you willing to sacrifice, somebody who isn't necessarily a terrible person, but to preserve your people? Are you willing to do that? And it's different from, don't even bring this comparison up. It's different from, well, that's why they're killing the Paradisians, to preserve the other people, because Paradisians don't spontaneously turn into Titans. The people in the rest of the world were turning them into Titans via the serum. No serum equals no Titans. Okay? Now, this is one I won't split hairs or, argue that much about. But I feel, okay, you pause to read, obviously. I feel like Floch is definitely an asshole. He's an asswipe. He's arrogant. And that comes from insecurity, right? His arrogance was born from his insecurity. He's arrogant. He's kind of disgusting, and his approach is awful. I will stand 10 toes down on that. But I can also see how, in the eyes of the small folk, he's a hero. The small folk of Paradis would view him as a hero. Hey, you're fighting the people who are trying to take away our only chance of survival. You're a hero. Because the people of Paradis relied on the rumbling to be alive, to stay alive. And so, him fighting to protect that only chance of life that they have, that's heroic. He put his own life on the line to stand up for the small folk of Paradis by taking out people who were against the rumbling. And again, Isayama writes the rumbling as the people of Paradis's only chance of survival. He writes in blood tests so they can't intermingle with, everyone else without being figured out that they're Eldians via blood tests. He writes in, that Marley treated them the best out of the whole world. Everyone else hates them even more than Marley, right? He took all the precautions necessary to create a fact where it's genocide or be genocided. And so Floch, being someone who is standing up for his people and not allowing them to be genocided by putting his own life on the line and fighting, that is heroic. It just is. Okay, pause to read. Why were Mikasa and Armin seen as bad guys for not checking in on Eren? Now, this one is, I'm not going to split hairs. I'm not going to, like, dwell on this one because I don't necessarily care too much about this point. I think it is, it's Armin himself who says, hey, like, we weren't there for Eren. Like, we weren't there for him. We fucked up. It's Armin. It's the story itself that admits fault with Mikasa and Armin in their approach to Eren with all that he's going through, right? And again in 139, Armin's like, "Whoa, that must have been so hard for you," and all this shit, right? So, to go through all of that alone, must have been so hard for you. But he didn't go through that alone. He shared his burden with Historia, which, Mikasa did ask him, "Hey, share the burden with me. Like, we all did this, right? But our inaction brought us to this point." And it wasn't necessarily the characters in action. It was just the fact that Isayama wrote it as genocide or be genocided. So, like, in a real world example, how can you ever justify any genocide at all, right? Not towards yourself and not to other people. It's injustifiable. Eren shared these burdens with Historia, person of his choice. Cool. Say whatever you want, but that's what he decided to do. And the series ended up the way it ended up. So, yeah, I mean, Isayama himself wrote Armin saying, like, bro, we fucked up. We should have been there for you. So I'm not going to talk too much about that because Isayama wrote it into the story. I decided that we're going to stop this at 20 minutes, whether we get through all of them or not. Why are people upset that Armin and Mikasa cried over Eren's death? Yes, he did horrible things, but they're still their best friend. They can't forgive him. The anime cut out the scene of Armin thanking Eren, which means it's no longer canon. That's funny. Anyway, I don't think people see that as bad. Like, you would have to literally show me an example of people saying that that's bad. Armin thanking Eren is aggressively the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. And Isayama, he validates that by cutting it from the anime. So in this moment, I want you to understand that if Isayama can fuck up that bad by having a character thank another character for genocide, stretch your brain to understand that he is not a perfect writer and there are probably more mistakes in the series. If you can accept the fact that Isayama himself acknowledged that he fucked up by making Armin thank Eren, I need you to also accept the fact that he possibly made a lot more errors in the way that this show ends. Because here's one where he admits to making a mistake. He admits to it. And then he removes it from the anime. Right? Say what you will. If the anime is the most canon part of whatever, I don't care. I have no, desire to argue that at all. Eren, he deserves to be mourned by his best friends. Whatever. He does. Cool. Them crying, it makes sense. So you'd have to show me screenshots of the people who are like, why the hell are they crying over mass murder or something like that? You'd have to show me that. Pause to read. His words are untrustworthy because he's went back and forth and all around on what he said multiple times, saying he changed the ending, saying he didn't change it, saying it's the ending he wanted to do the whole time, saying he changed it to be more peaceful, saying he changed it because he thought Attack on Titan would be canceled, saying that he was now that it wouldn't be fair to the readers if he ended it the way he originally intended to, blah 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 blah. The list goes on. So he's flip-flopped so many times that nothing he says matters anymore. It's like the boy who cried wolf. After the 6th or 7th time, nobody's coming, nobody cares, nobody believes you, right? And yes, he is allowed to make changes even at the very end, but If they don't make sense, they don't make sense. And that is why any writer on the planet will tell you to never change your ending, never change your story. Because all of the foreshadowing, all of the little plot points, all of the plot threads that led to your one ending are now null and void, which is what we get with like Historia, and I would even argue the Ackermans and stuff. All of that leads nowhere now. The headaches, all of that leads nowhere. And, you know, you have to shoehorn in little bullshit to create the new ending, right? So you're bastardizing plot threads that are already in the book and giving them no proper conclusion, no orgasm, for lack of a better word, no orgasm to those things, right? And then you're shoehorning in last minute bullshit that doesn't make sense, that no one cares about, right? No one cares about getting over your toxic love. That was some shit that was shoehorned in at the last minute. No one cares. It makes no sense. It's not good. Sorry. You're allowed to change it, but it will kill your story. And that is what happened here. So this one, pause to read. How come Historia marrying a nameless farmer who threw rocks at her is somehow considered bad, but being Eren would have been fine? Eren was basically the reason why her father died. Eren was the reason why her family died. Okay. Historia's family were her family in blood only. Family in blood only. They did not give a fuck about her. Frida did. The rest of them did not give a fuck about her, which is why she was living on a fucking farm somewhere, and they were living in the inner city with the crystals and riches and all that stuff, right? I've seen somewhere, I would have to double check on the timeline of this, but the killing of the Reiss family is what led to Historia's life being spared. I would have to check on the timeline of that, but that could be a reason right there. But I'm not going to definitively say yes or no to that, because I've thought about it and I'm not sure if the timeline really matches up. But the statement is that without killing the Reiss family, Historia's life would have never been spared. So it was like after all of Rod's children were dead, he knew he needed like another piece of royal blood to become a Titan in the future if it came down to it. And so that's why he put Historia away and then sought after her once it came down to it. And no, you're wrong. I did not I didn't even read this until right now, but I am not saying that Historia already accepted that her family had to die. Those people are not her family. The only person that was Historia's family was Frida. But in manipulating her memories, she took that away from her as well. So Historia grew up with having no one. In her mind, Historia only had animals as friends. Not the bully who threw rocks at her. Not any parents. Not even a big sister until her memories were restored. So I think it's very, very, very facetious to say like, oh, but her family, oh, but her family, oh, but her family. That's just, I mean, it's the same thing of like saying Ymir's family, right? It like referring to King Fritz. That wasn't her fucking family. That was a rapist. He didn't give a shit about her. He used her. That's the same, like in the same sense, Rod is not Historia's father. He's her biological father, but he's not her dad. You know what I mean? She didn't already accept shit, right? Because she never had a family. She never had a family. And she even consoled Eren about it. Like, hey, like, they fucking died, that's it. I mean, whatever. You know, my life is still the same with them alive or dead. Right? So that's why. That's why it doesn't matter at all, you know. That he killed her family. Come on now. Come on now. Her family that got her mom killed. Let's be so for real. Okay. Finally, I never understood why the message that war and the cycle of hatred and violence will continue no matter what is considered a bad message. It's not bad. It's just tired and it's not creative. And Isayama showcased it in a really awful way. a really awful way. He introduced Eren in the series as this immovable object, right? Like, no matter what cage you put him in, he will always overcome it because his spirit cannot be caged, right? That's something Levi said in the story. And that's something that we were shown, right? It was backed up time after time after time, arc after arc, chapter after chapter. Eren was shown to be this immovable object. You cannot negatively, you can't talk him out of preserving his own life. You can't talk him out of his own morals because he's literally an immovable object. So the story was always about like cycle of hatred and violence, right? That was strewn in throughout the whole story, right? So to introduce a character as an immovable object in a story that's already created as this, cycle of violence, cycle of hatred, Eren becomes the answer to that cycle of hatred, cycle of violence. And so that is the culmination of what ended things in the rumbling. The fact that you have this immovable object who acquires the power to act on his beliefs, right? Who will not just lay down and die, who will fight for his life and his innocent people who bore him and raised him, right? Eren is the answer to the cycle of violence. And to reduce him to an idiot who just got too much power or whatever, that's to spit in the face of the readers who watched this immovable object bit by bit, piece by piece, acquire the power to protect himself and protect the innocents and to make up for all the lives that were lost on Paradis by giving them a future where they will no longer have to deal with the hatred based on their race and the cycle of violence based on their race. That was Eren's purpose, and the end, like 139, retcons his entire character and turns him into a movable object, somebody whose morals and stuff can be stripped down and taken away. And that's just not what we saw in the series prior. That's what makes it bad, right? Because there's ways to do that. The cycle of violence and the cycle of hatred is the actual immovable object, right? Like, there's a way to create a story like that and have it still be satisfying, right? Like, sometimes your best just isn't enough. There are movies and shows like that are very fucking sad, right? Sometimes, no matter what, your best just is not enough. I think of Monsters, Inc., the second movie, right? Monsters University. No matter what Mike did, he would never be a scarer because he just wasn't built like that. It wasn't in him, right? So there's stories that end like that are good, right? Like, there was nothing he could do. He couldn't learn more. He couldn't power up more or anything like that. He couldn't change his appearance to be a scarer. He was dealt a set of cards and they defined his life up until the end. And that Monsters University is still a really good fucking movie, even though shit doesn't end in the character's favor, in the main character's favor. It's still a good movie because, hey, that's life, right? That's life. Sometimes you aren't the chosen one. That's life. But Eren was shown time and time again to be this person with these unshakable morals, with these, this aura of him that was just unchangeable. And once he finally got the power, he made his choice. And then in the last fucking 2 seconds, oh no, it's just an act. Like, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. We would have need to see much more insight at the end, like much more into his mind at the end to be able to justify something where it was like, oh, just kidding. This was all a Lelouch planned failure. That makes no sense. Anyways, let's wrap this up. I said it'd be 20 minutes. We're already at 25. So let's do the next one. Okay, this last one is even if Eren did complete the rumbling, it's really impossible for Paradis to not end up in the same situation it did in the canon ending. Would it be impossible for non-Paradisians to rise up and destroy the island from within? Now, that would have been an amazing ending. Holy shit, that would have been something else. That now you have just accidentally created a subversive masterpiece. That would have been an amazing fucking ending. That would have been the cycle of violence, you know, is inevitable. It will follow and chase everything. Holy shit. Like, you just blew my mind a little bit. Think about it. Eren finishes the rumbling. You have your Yelena, Hizuru lady, Onyonkapone, whatever, blah, 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 blah. They marry each other, whatever, da, 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 have their own pure race people who aren't Eldians. Over time, they rise up and they destroy Paradis. That would be a subversive fucking masterpiece, because it just goes to show, even the people that you show mercy, their racism runs so deep and so, like, you know, Hizuru doesn't give a fuck about Paradis. They don't give a fuck about Eldians. They just want the resources, right? So they don't care about their plight for real. And then after this rumbling, they have a valid reason to be a bit racist, right? So that would be a spectacular ending that shows, hey, cycle of violence never ends. But instead, we get the outside world that was spared with this nonsensical, just more than half rumbling. Those people are the ones that rise up, as Eren knew they would. So all the problems go back to Eren being retconned, right? Him not going through, or at least trying to go through with 100%. That is what fucks the ending in the ass. Because Eren knew himself that it was me or you. It was us or them. He told Historia. Historia has a monologue at the end where she says, hey, Eren told me this fight would never end, right? So he's aware. So why on earth would he, with his godlike powers, give up and try to make his friends super duper heroes? Also, still, how and why did Mikasa know he was in the mouth? Come on. Like, those are all things that make Attack on Titan bad. Because instead of there being an answer for that, which literally allows the Alliance to win, Mikasa knowing where he is in the mouth, we're just left to guess. So that is not a proper, like, you know, ooh, like, interpret the ending how you want. That's not properly done. That's unfinished, unexplained. The mystery remains, as Isayama said, right? Come on. Like, you know that's bad. The thing that allows 6 soldiers to win against God, all comes down to Mikasa knowing where Eren is with his remote control Titan abilities. And off screen, she somehow figures out that he's in the mouth. That one reason alone makes the ending bad. Anyway, I think this will be my last video for the Nut Keeper. Maybe not my last AOT video, but definitely my last in regards to the Nut Keeper. I'm literally at work right now. So for all the people telling me, girl, get a job. I'm here. I work here 4 days a week, okay? I got a job. That's covered. I just got time sometimes. Sometimes your girl just got time. So I'm going to warm up my lunch and let you guys watch this. And wow, I'm just still thinking about the subversive masterpiece you accidentally, offered.